So, it is the time of year for favorite books of the year videos, and I would like to give that a shot. Hold on just a second. There is the very precarious pile. And I read, apparently, 217 books this year. I got a Storygraph account and tracked my reading for the first time in my life. And so these are the 1/10 of the books I read, because 217 read and about 60 DNF'd. So I feel confident saying these are wonderful. If you are curious about any of them, it'll be great. So, Clocktar Wars Duology by T. Kingfisher. I adore T. Kingfisher, so I'm biased in favor. But these are the books that made me fall for her and her work and the world of the white rat specifically. So there's a sequence where they're learning to ride horses that had me laughing so hard I shut my eyes and lost my place repeatedly. Could not find my place again because I'd just start laughing again and close my eyes. It was ridiculous. So, lovely and fantasy-leaning romantasy, but with actual grown-up characters, and a thoughtful start to the world-building involved in The White Rat. The Singing Hills, oh my gosh, I think there's 7 or 8 of them now, and I only own 2 because they're expensive, but I've read them through the library and really love them. They are lovely. I need to stop saying love. Fairy tales. They're fairy tales. Fantasy China. There is a monk. They have a magical bird. They are traveling around Fantasy China collecting stories, and it is wonderful and diverse in its breadth of Fantasy China-ness. And the vibe of it is really peaceful and gentle and interesting. Gently interested in everything. Just shining a nice golden light on things that feels nice and to relax into. A Memory Called Empire. I own the second one, but I love the first one. The second one is not as beloved by me personally because they're exploring different things in it. In this one, we've got what seems to me to be a Mayan Aztec fusion society that has taken over the world and taken over the universe and then taken over the intergalactic empire. It formed an intergalactic empire, didn't take it over, and that was long, long ago. And now we've got this person who has been appointed a woefully unprepared ambassador to the city at the heart of the intergalactic empire, and there's political drama and whatever, but I loved the world building. If you know any Own Voices works that are similar, tell me. I need them desperately, because the names and the poetry and the city and the food, and I loved it. I need more in my life, and I would much rather it was Own Voices. This one's on paper because I loaned it to a friend, and I'll probably end up buying another copy. The New Jim Crow, which honestly I really believe ought to be required reading for everybody in the United States. I've been entangled in the criminal justice system my entire life, and I learned a lot. And it'll piss you off because it ought to piss you off, but it's completely readable and compelling and important to know and understand, and so would highly recommend. If you want something more autobiographical that's kind of related, there's a book called Just Mercy that's very good, but I prefer this one. It's not autobiographical. It's looking at all the pieces and how they come together, and I think I'm going to end up saying that a lot in this video. I'll try and diversify my vocabulary a little bit. Here, nonfiction, more nonfiction. I believe in this one so much. Oh crap. The Dawn of Everything. That I read it out loud to my child. Okay, it is not a small book. And it is one of those introductory, this is what I'm going to show you, and then I show you, and then it's the closing, and that's not for everybody, but it's, so we have these internal assumptions, cultural what we've been taught, whatever, right? And prehistory is for us either nasty, brutish, and short, or it's this noble thing from which we have fallen, and if we could only reclaim that, right? And it's not. It's complicated because humans have been complicated ever since we've been humans, and this delves into that. He's looking at the bits that don't fit either narrative, and encouraging us to think about different ways of seeing our lives and how we fit into the world and how we could experiment with our social structures, which would be great. Experiment. We need to get less entrenched in the nonsense we have been raised in, right? And so, would highly recommend for reading. This one, actual autobiography, How to Say Babylon. It is by a woman who was raised in Jamaica, Rastafarian. It's fascinating because it's got this repressive religious aspect of it, but it's Rastafarian, and so it's completely unfamiliar to me. And so there's maybe a content warning there. Look into it if you need to, but it's very well done and just very readable. Autobiographies from competent writers are a wonderful thing. Another piece of paper, because the library's copy is loaned out, and for some reason I don't own this one. I don't know why. And it's one of those that The Space Between Worlds. I barged right through it and then didn't want to start reading another book because I knew the next one just couldn't measure up. I like those. That's generally a good sign in a book, right? So it is interdimensional travel, except it is interdimensional travel for commercial gain from the perspective of the lowly employees and the people on the fringes of society, which is awesome. That's my jam. And so it's an interesting way of looking at it, at all of the different ideas and components, and how exploitative systems can be, even in a completely unfamiliar way, and how to fight against that. Next up, this brick of a trilogy, the Ancillary Justice trilogy. And if you loved Murderbot, and we all love Murderbot, right? We've got a distinctly non-human thing trying desperately to figure out humans. And so that is the jam for a lot of people. If you want Murderbot, but more ambitious, more revenge, more building lots of different world building scenes in different planets, because the world building's really thoughtful. Go into a different planet, and this author thought through these cultures, which is really cool. And I will say I liked this better on reread, because the first read through, there is the what in the hell is going on, especially with the gender stuff, and it was awesome, but I took a minute to catch up. And so I enjoyed this better on the reread, but super fun, especially, I think, for fans of Murderbot, although I don't think I've seen anybody else drawing that comparison, so maybe I'm just crazy. You've probably seen these. The Six of Crows, duology. I DNF'd the base series because I don't do patriotism, nationalism. I want to rule over these people that know zero patience. This, on the other hand, is a heist duology. Multiple heists by scrappy criminals who do not read nearly as young as they are supposed to be, and do not read just the first one. There's a cliffhanger. It will piss you off. So lots of different explorations into lots of different fantasy cultures that are kind of, the heart of it is set in what is probably Holland, around a prosperity doctrine, acquisition of wealth religion, which is really freaking cool. And yeah, heists are fun, and heist in a fantasy world is more fun. This one, oh my goodness, if you have trauma from Christianity, if you have trauma from Revelations, if you have trauma from the Left Behind books, if you don't want to admit that it's trauma, but you have emotional entanglements with any of those things, you probably really, really, really ought to read this book. I appreciated it tremendously, because when I was raised evangelical, and when I was in it, we spent all this time focusing on the Bible itself, right? No time at all focusing on how we wound up with the Bible that we have. And so it's really nice to learn about the thing that you're focusing on and how we wound up with it and the literary traditions that led to the creation of it, especially in the case of Revelations, because it really helps with not being scared anymore. Really, really does. If you need that book, I hope desperately that you are willing to read it. Here, completely different nonfiction. Thai cookbook, Hot Thai Kitchen. All of her recipes are available for free online on her website, on YouTube. They're great. But on the one hand, I love having books. On the other hand, in this cookbook, she knows all of her recipes are available for free, right? And so she goes really in depth with the underlying concepts, the fundamental, these are the goals, these are how you do substitutions. This is what you can do. This is what a Thai person would do with your kitchen, with what you have available, which is super freaking cool. And I love the food. Oh my goodness. This, not to sound like a crazy person, is probably my all-time favorite book. And, The Ends of the World. Volcanic apocalypses, lethal oceans, and our quest to understand Earth's past mass extinctions, and it is not as depressing as it sounds. So, reading about human history is infuriating and stressful for me, and probably for a lot of people. Reading about, like, geological history, like the history of life itself and what the planet's done without any personal responsibility for it, is really nice. I appreciate that. And so it is looking at evolution and the history, I've said the history of life already, but how the planet has bounced back from multiple awful, worse than anything we've managed to accomplish yet ways. And it's amazing and hopeful and zooms so far out because it is looking at things from a geologic standpoint, which is so far beyond a human standpoint that it's really nice and refreshing, and I desperately need it, and honestly probably read it once a year. This one, The Earth Knows My Name, Food, Culture, and Sustainability in the Gardens of Ethnic Americans. So the idea is looking at people who have immigrated to the United States, although there's a couple that are Native American, so ethnic Americans, like the title said. All right, Paloma. If you are into gardening books, this is lovely. It is thoughtful. You will meet new plants. You will meet new cultures. You will meet new people, and it's a nice read. Very thoughtful, and yeah, the author likes everybody, and it comes through. This one, honestly, this one's a little steep. Indigenous economics, sustaining peoples and their lands. Economics books, you don't expect them to grab you and drag you in with a compelling plot, right? This one does not. It expects you to actually want to read it if you show up. But it is readable and it is interesting. It's so important for recontextualizing how you see value and culture and exchange, like monetary exchange, but also the title kind of explains it. I'm telling you, it's amazing if you're willing to read something that feels like a textbook. And that's nice. This one, The 13th Tale. Do not be fooled by this book's cozy shell. When you crack into it, it is gothic horror. And so that is not terrifying. That is not monsters under your bed. That is, oh my God, what is the matter with these people? Ah! Right? So if you really wish you could read Wuthering Heights again for the first time, yeah, rock on. Lots of fun. Another What in the Hell is Going On book, The Everlasting. Gender-bent Arthurian madness that is also somehow looping time travel, not just time travel, looping time travel for political machinations, and it's really cool, and there's lots of pieces that fit together in a really good way, and I don't know how she managed to internal logic her way to that conclusion, but that was cool. Now, the backstory she gave the villain takes the teeth out of the political commentary and really, really pissed me off, but I still had a lot of fun with it. It is, at heart, a romantasy and a really fun one. Am I slamming those really loudly? I think I'm slamming those really loudly. That's in front of my face. Super volcanoes. What they reveal about the Earth and the worlds beyond. I didn't read that subtitle when I initially got it, and so I was surprised when most of the book was about space volcanoes, but that's okay, because the best parts of the book are about space volcanoes, and I don't like space. I mean, I read How I Killed Pluto and Why It Had It Coming, and that was really good, but it's not something I pursue, right? But this, it starts off on Earth, and it's a little uncomfortably tangible, even though it's nice to know that the supervolcano under Yellowstone isn't actually going to be an issue. So that's nice. But the exploration of different planets and how the hell we know about what we're finding out is really cool, and it's good science writing. I am a fan of really good, compelling science writing. This one, The City of Last Chances. It must be really good, because there's no way in hell I would put up with a book with this many characters otherwise. It was so many characters. And so there's nothing groundbreaking about the world building. It is a really cool fantasy city with a really cool magical system that's not going to surprise you, but it's focusing entirely on the idea of rebellions and rebelling against oppressive systems and the nature of oppressive systems. And so it's a unique perspective for a fantasy novel, in my experience, and very well done. And I was completely hooked into it, much to my surprise. Sand Talk is, I'd say, related to The Dawn of Everything and also related to Braiding Sweetgrass. It is a guy in Australia that is really slowly and thoughtfully looking at everything through a consciously indigenous lens. And so it's completely unfamiliar to me, right? I've never left the US. And so the indigenous Australian perspective is not one I've encountered elsewhere. But it's well done. It's welcoming. It's very conversational. And that's nice. And I appreciate a book that can challenge me with a completely unfamiliar to me viewpoint. So, but he's like, yeah, I carved a boomerang while yarning about this particular concept with this person, and every chapter has somebody he's introducing as an alternative viewpoint. Some of them make him uncomfortable too, and so it's really cool. This one, I had no business finishing this book this year, was not planning on finishing this book this year. Octavia Butler is incapable of writing a simple story. Just completely. So this actually is an entire trilogy banged into one, and so the ending was, for me, a lot weaker than the other two parts of the book. But premise is crap. Humanity has destroyed itself through nuclear war, because of course it has. And so these horrifying gray aliens, did I say Lilith's brood? I didn't. Lilith's brood. Gray tentacled aliens have come down and scooped up all the survivors and put them in suspended animation while they repaired the planet. And now they are willing to, interact with the survivors and let them survive, as long as they're willing to let the human race die out completely via interbreeding with the gray, horrifying tentacled aliens. So it's kind of like Overgrowth by Mara Grant, which I also read this year, but this one's a lot more ambitious and really trying to dig into feelings of powerlessness, choices people make when there are no good choices. It's just kind of a depressing book to end the year on. Although the end of the book is not as depressing as the other parts of the book. Even if I did think it was weaker than the others, it's nice to have that ending there. So, that is it. That is my, 1/10 of my reading year. The best 10th. And, we are moving into 2026 tomorrow, which is nice. Hopefully springtime will be here soon, because I really need to get out in the garden. I love you guys. I hope that you are doing good. If you have any books that are related to, if you listened to me rant about these and thought this person would love this other book, rock on. Tell me. That would be great. And especially anything that's reminding you of, the space opera one. Memory Called Empire, that one. Any own voices of that, please. That would be amazing. But I guess I'm going to go edit videos. So, love y'all.